Yeah, hi there. This is tuxaucher.com again. Welcome on my video channel. And in today's little video, we want to take a first look on ON1 PhotoRAW 2019, which was released on November 13th. The software still is available for Windows and Macintosh, and of course you can get yourself a trial download valid for 30 days to test the software by your own before you buy it. Let me talk first about the interval of updates with cost. Now we have the situation that ON1 released every year close to Christmas a new release of the PhotoRAW converter with cost. At least in back in last year, the update and the regular license prices were a little bit higher. They cut off this year around $20, but the main advantage over a rental model like with the Lightroom will vanish this way. The only way you could do is just once in a while skip an update if you like to save costs. On the other hand, if you have a very recent camera, you might be forced to update for support in the RAW converter. Okay, but now let's go to the desktop PC and take a look into the new features of ON1 PhotoRAW 2019. Okay, I started ON1 PhotoRAW 2019 here on the PC, and the RAW converter still doesn't force you to update. You can go right away into a folder if you like and start with image processing. But if you want to use very fast searchability, you have to index the folders either for the EXIF or other metadata, so the application will generate a sort of a catalog. Okay, what's mainly new is the surface, as you might notice, and here the keyword list, which is straightforward, but ON1 didn't implement a hierarchical keyword list so far. That's a little bit bad, but it is okay for regular usage. What I criticized in earlier posts about ON1 PhotoRAW is the inclusion of cloud drive services right into the software. That is, to me, not necessary, because usually on a laptop or desktop PC, the cloud drivers are shown as regular folders either in your file system or in your user profile. So okay, they did it, but on the other hand, it isn't necessary at all. Okay, let's go right into some examples. What they did here is they still have the menu item layers, but now we have the layers inside the edit module. Okay, we take those two different exposures here and start opening them into layers. Here's the first one, here is the second one, and I guess the darker is on top. Yeah, okay. But before we go into a little example processing, you might notice that here they have the develop settings, which is more or less the raw editing. They have here the effects, where you can add a filter. There might be more filters added to the software, but I would have liked it if they did a sort of preview overlaid with your own image, so you can judge more easily how the effect will work on your own image. Then the new one is here, portrait mode. It will try to recognize automatically persons. Then you have here the symbol and the person recognized at the side of this symbol, and then you can do extra portrait image processing, especially with the eyes and the teeth of a person, where you can define easily to manage mask to give them extra color, extra whitening, and so on. And here you have the local adjustments, maybe as you know before. Now what we can do here, you have the regular raw power of processing each layer separately, which personally to me is pretty good and more easy to handle like the regular Photoshop files. Okay, let's do a little example processing. We take a mask here, get a graduated filter here, and do a lineared bottom, and now we do a thing like that. And as you can see here, he defined a mask on black on the bottom and white on the top, so we can use the pretty dark sky from the little underexposure capture and rightly exposed foreground from the other capture. That is quick and dirty exposure blending just in a couple of minutes. Now you can of course do the raw power, like bring down the highlights a little bit more like this without affecting of course the foreground, and do a little bit more saturation so the clouds will be a little bit more distinguished from the blue sky. The thing what I don't like is if you look here on all the settings, you might miss a save button. The image is saved automatically if you go back to browse mode. As you can see now, when you start to save the image, there would have preferred a save button and not automatically generate another file in the system. Okay, another thing they did is focus stacking. We get those images from a mushroom, and here you got the photo stack. Now the software tries to blend the different focus layer into one image. Try to make that a little bit bigger. That looks pretty good. Now you can do is save the image and open it up right away in the edit module for further processing. But what you can do also is play around with the depth of field. That doesn't make that much sense in a close-up image, but we just save the image. And what ON1 is implementing for the next update is to generate separate layers for every focus layer, including the mask, so you can manually correct the mask just in case they don't fit. And okay, that's what I say, that things like focus stacking and other things don't belong in a general raw converter. And that is where we come to the things I don't like. They still have the same arrow in panorama mode. Go into panel. Maybe you can see here that you merged only 6 out of 8 images. The mountain here on the right hand side, sorry, goes a little bit further, and that is to me a little bit unusable, even if the competitor Lightroom does single row or multiple row panoramas pretty good. But of course, just like this software here, they do have their problems with the sphere panorama. Okay, that were the main new features on ON1 Photo RAW 2019. As I criticized in earlier blog posts, things like focus stacking or panorama mode or HDR to me don't belong in a general RAW converter. They should invest the time for these routines in better RAW converting, supporting the new cameras and so on. Okay, maybe you ask at this time, why no word about Lightroom migration tool? The Lightroom migration tool looked pretty good on the video supplied by ON1 itself, and of course I tried it. I'm interested in finding maybe another software, and I need 4 trials on my laptop to finish the migration process without any error messages. The first 2 times I tried this, the process quitted with the blue screen. Too bad. The 3rd time the process seemed to be finished, and it was finished, but then I had the problem just starting ON1 Photo 1, just starting in browser modus, no editing or things like that. The CPU usage went up at least to 70%, most of the time close to 100, so the laptop wasn't usable anymore. And the only thing I could get rid of this effect was to delete all folders in my user profile which looked like ON1 folders, and install the software again. Besides the fact that this process, I tried it with a sample catalog, around 600 to 650 images. It take between 1.5 and 2 hours. You could say that is a long time, but on the other hand, you do this only once, so that isn't the point. When I last did the process, it finished, it was okay. But then I had the effect, I show you an example here, that looked pretty good. To me, same colors, white balance and so on. And here's another example. White balance and colors seem to be migrated very good, but to me the image generated by the ON1 photo RAW converter seems to be too sharp, over sharpening. And last but not least, I show you this one. I did take this as an example because those pictures were taken accidental with the wrong white balance for tungsten, and it's pretty easy to correct this error in a RAW converter. That's not the point. But migrating all those settings, development settings, I either had the effect that the image on the thumbnail on the browse view mode would stay very bluish, just as there weren't any conversion at all. And if I double click the image to see it in full size, then ON1 changed to the right colors, but that was the case not on all images. Some stayed bluish. So to me, the Lightroom migration tool isn't stable enough to risk it with a catalog of, let's say, 40 or 50,000 images. That is where ON1 has to work on, at least if they state themselves as a Lightroom competitor. And maybe this part gets an update for the next version and we do a test again, but so far the process is not that stable, so I wouldn't give it a try. It's to me just risky if you have to control a whole bunch of images if they were migrated in the right way. Okay, that was the first little look on ON1 Photo RAW 2019. ON1 2019 is a pretty good RAW converter. You get all the settings you need, and you got the layers, which makes the RAW converter sort of outstanding, at least with this price. But to be a Lightroom competitor, we're on the right way, but we're not finished yet. Okay, if you have any questions, just place them in the comments. And of course, I would like if you give a like for this video, or even if you subscribe my video channel. Till the next time, ciao, Tux Oche.